It was packed in the centre of town when Lorelei and Drake arrived. The market was open today, and there were many attractions and sights to take in. Money exchanged hands at stalls which had been set up outside the regular shops, stalls selling all kinds of things. One sold interestingly shaped helium balloons, another sold takeaway snacks as well as little gifts and trinkets, and one was selling masks made of the most fabulous and colourful designs. Lorelei danced past stall after stall, eyeing up its merchandise, skipping past a figure wearing a plague mask, and sparing it only a glance. There were dream catchers and candles on one stall, another that sold all bags, one garden accessories, another did engravings. Lorelei fussed and hurried around the market, picking up everything she could get her hands on. She reached the end of the row of stalls, then turned back and started all over again. Trailing after her, Drake followed patiently, feigning interest in the things she tried to show him. "Hey, look, a Ferris wheel!" Lorelei suddenly called out excitedly. Drake glanced at it, amazed by her short attention span. "That wheel was there every year," he said in an exasperated tone. "I know, but I get so excited." She moved away from Drake and towards the Ferris wheel, weaving in and out of the crowd of people. "I keep forgetting how busy it gets," Lorelei said to Drake. She was struggling not to lose her in the crowd as he followed behind. The wheel was located very close to the town centre, where the brothers would perform, but Lorelei and Drake's progress moving through the ever-thickening crowd was slow and tedious, especially when Lorelei stopped at every opportunity to look at everything. Her excuse was that she was attracted to things that shine. Little trinkets, cut glass in the shape of tiny animals, earrings with too many digits. She even found a silk scarf that sadly didn't match her hair colour. Drake, in turn, would occasionally risk going off on his own to look at things that interested him. Watches, shirts with brand names. She would find him soon enough, as he never wandered far. It was easy enough to get lost with so many people around. "I told Alice I would meet her in the town centre," Lorelei was saying. "She should be there somewhere, but we might need to get to higher ground to find her." The scene in the town was wonderful in all its bright colours. Closer to the centre, near the Ferris wheel, were tents of red and yellow, blue and white, and green and white. Some of them were hosting sideshows and stalls which featured games like the coconut shy, and others which involved rubber duckies. Lorelei and Drake passed the merry-go-round on their way. With its insufferable and repetitive music, they paused again briefly, and Drake bought each of them a toffee apple. "We'd better go meet your friend," he said, at last, when they had finished. "She must be wondering where we are." "Well," Lorelei winked, "we would get a better view of the town from the Ferris wheel. She would be easier to find." "How did I know you'd say that?" Drake smiled wearily. From the Ferris wheel, they finally caught sight of Alice, who was waiting for them at the edge of the crowd within the town centre. When the ride had finished, Lorelei leapt from the carriage and ran to meet her. She was greeted by several other friends that Alice had brought with her, and once he had caught up again, Lorelei introduced Drake to the others, causing many of them to immediately swoon over him. Drake was very handsome. Once the formalities and introductions were over, Alice led the group quickly to the front of the crowd. "Come over here, the show's nearly started," she told them. They made their way forwards through the mass of people with smiles and winks. Drake came after them, moving slowly and politely so as not to intrude upon anyone. They eventually reached the front and stood in a row side by side as the performance began, with Lorelei in the middle. They waited for the performance to begin. The first brother almost had an aggressive look about him, a look of attitude. He was tall, wearing torn jeans and a blue coat with an upturned black collar. His ears were pierced, and on the left side of his neck was a tattoo of a beautiful rose with its petals unfurled. His hair was spiked downwards and was pure white, streaked in vivid red. His expression was calculated, and he had freakishly unnaturally bright blue eyes that pierced the very soul. The music started simple. Only one brother was there. He moved in time with the tunes, dancing with his shoulders first, head perfectly still. Then as the second beat came in, he moved to the side, sliding his whole body, arms and legs and head and neck in perfectly graceful motions, moves perfectly coordinated. Then he suddenly turned stiff, robotic. He pushed himself to the ground impossibly low, then with no effort at all rose to a volley of cheering and clapping. People laughed as he impersonated a robot, a car, moved closer, winked at a girl. Drake chuckled, clapping his hands. "He's pretty good," he admitted to Lorelei. "What do you think?" The dancing brother shuffled to the side in a crouched position, holding a comical face. His body slowed in time with the music. His robot self shut down. He's very good, Lorelei smiled back, not entirely impressed as the routine came to an end. His first dance was quite simple, the music not too fast or lively. The second brother stepped in. Lorelei gasped in awe as they began. It was at that moment her heart was taken, beating faster as she watched, utterly mesmerized as they moved. The second brother had a gentler appearance and a softer expression. There was almost a boy Lolita look about him. He had blonde highlights in his light brown hair, which was medium in length, and he was dressed more casually than his older brother. Throwing his head back, he marched forwards. His dancing was just as aggressive as his brother's. Lorelei was fixated on him, taking in his every feature. He was shorter than the other brother, but had eyes just like his. Dancing side by side, occasionally changing positions to hide behind the others, using their arms, using their legs and moving their heads. They twisted their bodies, locking and popping. They danced in various styles. It was fast, it was beautiful, but all too soon it was over. Lorelei let out a breath that she didn't know she had been holding. She gathered herself again, only to see Drake giving her a teasing look. "Fallen in love, have we?" "What are you talking about?" Lorelei flushed in a sharp tone. "Oh, don't give me that," he nudged at her arm playfully. "Do you think I'm blind?" She was a lot angrier and irritated with herself than she expected, and was surprised at what she felt. Was it perhaps because someone had caught her off guard? That had never happened before. But before she could say anything else to Drake, he had mumbled something to her that she didn't quite hear. Then he left her side. Lorelei craned her head, trying to find him in the crowd, wondering what he was up to, but he was gone. That sneaky little devil. Alice cut her thoughts. They should be taking a break now, she said as the brothers moved away. "So, what did you think?" "They were really good," Lorelei answered, composing herself. "Come on," Alice said. "Let's go look at some of the stalls." It was beginning to get dark by the time the group decided to split up and go home. Drake had found Lorelei walking with Alice before they had left the town. He didn't say where he went or why, which annoyed Lorelei even more, and no matter how much she nagged him, he remained silent. But the glint in his eye still remained. After nearly an hour, she gave up asking. "It's really pretty here when it's dark," Lorelei sighed, sitting on a low wall with Alice and Drake either side of her. The town was quietening as people returned to their homes and the fun fair was winding down. Only a few people still trailed back and forth now, and yet it grew more beautiful by night. Multicoloured electric lights on strings, the dim lights of the stalls, the tents, now silent and desolate for the most part, sat with their darkening colours. The entire town square glowed with magnificence, and the aftermath of the joy the day had brought to so many people. It was all so peaceful. "You're right," Alice replied to Lorelei, rising and pulling with her as they walked side by side. "It is really nice here." Drake pushed himself off the wall, following after the two girls. The three of them wandered through the empty town square, heading slowly towards the Ferris wheel. Alice twirled and took a seat on a flight of steps that led up to the base of the Ferris wheel, which now sat still and silent, but with its lights still burning bright. "It's a shame Reuben and Lucas didn't come," Lorelei said glumly, taking a seat beside Alice. "It would have been nice. I wonder why they didn't in the end." "There's always tomorrow," Alice chimed in. "Come on," Drake said to both of them. "It's getting late. We had better be going. I'll take you both home now." "Oh, he's such a gentleman," Alice teased, nudging Lorelei's arm. "I don't know why you don't go out with him." "I'm ready to go home now," Lorelei said in a deliberate voice sharper than she intended. She had had quite enough annoyance for today. "Take me home, Drake." "How do you feel?" Reuben asked Lucas. "All right, I guess." They had just arrived home safely. Lucas was lying down on the sofa with his feet up and several pillows behind his head. It was the first place he chose to rest as soon as they got back. Reuben proceeded to bombard him with questions as to how comfortable he was, and if there was anything else he could do to help. "You really shouldn't fuss so much, Reuben," Lucas tittered, taking the bowl of steaming soup his brother handed him, a ready-made sachet found at the back of one of the cupboards. "I can't help it. I'm sorry, I just feel so bad." "Just forget it," Lucas drawled. "But you could have died because of me." "Well, I could have, but I didn't." Reuben sat and stared at Lucas as he sipped his soup from his bowl. After a while, Lucas began feeling uncomfortable under the glare. "I'm fine. You know you don't have to stare at me for the rest of the day." Lucas began to laugh. He tensed suddenly, holding his side. Immediately Reuben rushed forwards to grab the bowl before it spilled. Lucas gave him a disapproving frown, taking the bowl back. The two of them relaxed. Lucas more than Reuben. "We could spend our whole lives saying, 'But what if?'" Lucas began. "Nothing was ever gained from regret." "I know. Tell you what," Lucas began, as a sudden thought hit him. "If you want to do something for me, why don't you go find this girl Rhian?" I could do that," Reuben nodded eagerly. "Where would I find her?" "Geez, I don't know. Just look around." "Okay. We Guardians should stick together," Lucas went on. "I think it's important that you find her." "Okay then, bye." He hesitated again, then left. Lucas smiled to himself, thinking fondly of his brother's foolishness. He sat back against the pillows, sighing and closing his eyes, content. Here he rested for several minutes, until he received a call on his mobile. Not recognizing the number, he answered anyway. "Hello?" "Hey," said a female voice. "It's me." "Hey, Cyan," Lucas smiled, grateful to hear his girlfriend's voice. "I don't recognize this number." "My phone broke," Cyan explained. "I'm using another. Anyway, I just thought I'd check on you. I would hate for you to forget about me." "I could never forget about you." "I should think not," she answered. "So how are you?" "I'm fine. Anything to report?" "Nope." "Okay, good. So when are you coming to see me next?" "I don't know," Lucas admitted. "Well, I haven't got much money." "Okay, well, how about I come down to see you?" "Maybe." "You don't like that idea?" I'm feeling a bit unwell." "If you say so." Cyan dismissed. "I'll speak to you later then. Don't strain yourself." She hung up. Lucas stared at the mobile. His girlfriend had never been the clingy type. Most of the time, if anything, she was distant, but there was nothing she wouldn't do for him. He closed the mobile, slipping it back into his pocket and becoming still. It was several hours later when it began to get dark and Reuben had still not returned. Lucas sat there growing bored, sitting in complete silence. He began to get worried. About another hour or so later the phone rang. Catching Lucas by surprise, its call was loud and persistent, breaking the silence. Lucas heaved himself up. He slouched his way over towards the phone, holding his side and moving gingerly. Lucas wondered who would call at this time. He stopped before it and picked up the phone. "Hello?" "Is this Lucas?" a female voice said quietly. "Yes." "I'm a district nurse from Golden Heart Hospital. Your brother's been hit by a car."